something to talk about together and creating this space to talk about gaming and gambling and lifestyle addictions.
Absolutely.
Excited to be here.
It's, you know what, it's important. And nobody realizes that we do have little lifestyle addictions or random addictions that nobody really talks about. So you and I, when we were starting doing the pre-screening, we had talked about gaming, and not your regular, like, I'm not talking about online, Minecraft, or, well, even that too, but I'm not talking about like Xbox or PS1. I'm talking, you were mentioning, like, I've played Clash of Clans, I've played Merge Dragons is my favorite right now. I've played tons of apps on my tablet, on my iPhone, on all my electronics. And I do put money into them, right? I do put money into them. I don't know how much money I've spent on Merge Dragons in the last couple months. I couldn't tell you. I'd have to literally go back and try to calculate it.
Yeah.
But I have, right?
Right.
And while it can be an addiction, I go through phases, right? I'll put money into one app, and then, a month or two later, I'm like, I don't want to play this anymore. And then I go to another app and I find something, and like, it starts and stops. I'm not constantly doing it. So what would you say that for anybody who is gaming on their devices, what would qualify as an addiction for one of those apps to really be an addiction?
Yeah. And I mean, I'll just speak from personal experience. My addiction was gambling specifically. And so, I can look at some of my gaming behavior, and that would be, the inability to restrain yourself to the time that you've set aside to do that activity, where it's creating harm in other areas of your life, where you're neglecting other important responsibilities for yourself. And certainly, if you're playing games that have an in-game spending feature, if you're spending more than you can afford to spend, that you've not budgeted for this entertainment dollars, if you will, that could be a real big hint that you want to examine your relationship with gaming, and with that game in particular too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, for anybody watching, an addiction stems from a need to either replace, remove, or create an emotion. That's what addiction does, right? So I'm addicted to reading. Absolutely. I'm addicted to reading. I will spend all day, every day reading. I will lie in bed, lie on my couch. I'm on my phone. I have Kindle on my phone. So I'm reading all the time, every day. And I'm absolutely right, because there's days where I don't do anything else, right? Mm-hmm. It's like anybody asks me to do something and I'm like, no, I just want to finish this chapter, right? And it's little things like that we can become addicted to. Now, am I doing it because I want to remove or replace an emotion? In some cases, yes, because I have so many other things to do, and all I want to do is just relax. I just want to be in that moment, even lost in the book, right? Yeah. And for reading, that's what got me reading, is losing myself or losing reality into a story.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that, I mean, what can addiction look like? I mean, let's talk about one more level, one more page, one more spin, one more flip of the card, one more hand, right? Yeah. One more. We always want that one more.
Yeah. So I'm in Canada and you're in the US. So we are neighbors in a way.
Yeah.
We have like the Lotto Max and the Lotto 649, and you guys have the Powerball and all of that. I always tell my husband, I'm like, I can't win the lottery if I don't buy tickets, right? Yep. If I don't buy tickets for the lottery, I'm not going to win it, right? I'm constantly, every day, and again, lifestyle, right? Every day I'm on my phone, and I'm actually going to pull it up because it's quite funny. So I have these 3 apps or Safari searches on my phone all the time. Now, if I click into this one right here is, I can purchase lottery tickets online.
Yep.
So I never have to go to the store and buy my lottery tickets.
Oh, it's frictionless.
I'm buying my lottery tickets, right?
Yeah.
On the other side, I have the Realtor app where I have my
You can just buy a house in 5 seconds.
Yep. So I have my Realtor app, right? And I have a bunch of different notifications set, not notifications, but searches.
Yep.
And one of them is my mansion.
Yeah.
I search mansions across Canada just for shits and giggles because I like, window shopping. But there's mansions galore, right? And that's again something that I do, but I don't know if I would call it an addiction, right? Like I dream, I have a healthy dream. I want a big house.
Okay.
I want a room for everything. I want a room for everybody. I want my kids on the opposite side of the house so that I have like total space and quiet. But I want all my kids there. Right. I would be the atypical parent where my kids could live with me for the rest of their lives in their own like suite.
Yeah.
Right.
Everybody gets an ensuite.
Yeah. Or I have a dream of buying property and doing like the whole community thing, right?
Sure.
Where each of my kids get their own house.
I love this idea too. Yes.
And we have a communal swimming pool, a communal garden, right? All of that. I'd love that. But I either need to become a millionaire through the show or my businesses, or I need to win the lottery. Right. So there's my healthy goals, but I probably spend $50 a week on lottery tickets.
Okay.
Right. But that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different lotteries.
Sure. What happens if you remove it, right? And how much time are you spending thinking about it? And how much are you scheming and thinking you have a system?
Right? Last week, I totally forgot. I'm like, oh shit, I forgot. And it's 70 million right now. And I was like, oh shit, I forgot.
Yeah.
And then that was fine. Right. Nobody won it. So I was like, okay, phew. Not that I've won it yet, but at the same time, it's not like I'm not sitting there absolutely waiting for them to draw it. I'm not constantly, if I don't have the money for it, I don't have the money for it. Right. And
so when we talk about gaming and gambling, gambling in particular, right? Somebody who's addicted to gambling, same way somebody who's addicted to drugs or alcohol, once we reach a certain point in our addiction where I would say, there's kind of this line between problem behavior and addictive behavior. When I was active in my addiction, that I don't have money with which to gamble was not an obstacle. It was, I'm going to find the money so that I can gamble. That meant selling things that mattered to me. That meant taking out loans at ridiculous interest rates. That meant lying to people about why I was out of money and asking friends to lend me money so that I could pay them back. It meant acting out of my character, outside of the person who I aspire to be in the world, and even the picture I painted of myself for others in order to keep gambling.
Yeah.
And I would not say I can't afford to gamble. Right? I might say I can't afford to gamble. And then right away it was, how can I afford to gamble? Yeah. And I'm really fortunate that my addiction didn't lead me to an illegal behavior, but I had thoughts about it. And I suppose technically we could say it's illegal to kite a check. I don't know if you use that phrase in Canada, but where you draw a check on a balance that's not in the bank, in the hope that you're going to deposit before. That's technically illegal. So I guess maybe I did just admit to committing a crime. But I think that's part of it with addiction, is that there's not the off button. There's not the rational, like, oh, this is not a good idea based on the other things I have going on in my life. That voice is not heard.
Well, yeah. Shopping. Right. There's for women in particular, there's shopping addictions. Men do it too in a different sense. But I know people who have absolute shopping addictions where they are spending. Right. And closets upon closets full of clothes. Right. Mm-hmm. And that is an addiction. I was getting my nails done. I've gotten my nails done every month for the last year, 2 years, three.
Let me see.
But I don't have them right now.
Oh,
So I think my hands look short and stubby when I'm not wearing nails.
well, that's a thought.
It totally grosses me out, and I don't like not having nails. But I went and got my nails redone last month, right before my birthday, and they started breaking and cracking and just not what I needed. And so I took them all off, and I could have gone, right? I've had the money. I can go at any point in time to get my nails done, but I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to wait.
And you thought about the health of your natural nails. So I'm one of those really fortunate people. These are my natural nails with some gel polish on them. And thanks, Mom. It is something genetically I inherited from her. She had gorgeous nails. But about the third time with the gel, I have the same experience. Like, my nails are getting thin. They're starting to crack. I want to make sure that they stay healthy. Let them breathe. Right. And that's a conscious, rational choice to prioritize self-care in that way, where if we keep going when we're noticing that something's unhealthy, it can be that behavioral addiction. It can be a compulsion. You might, I know people who have gone so far that the surface gets cracked and then they end up with some infection and then the whole nail falls off because they became obsessed with having it be the way that they wanted it to be. Yes. So like anything can become an addiction.
Health and wellness.
Yeah.
So now I'm talking about people that I know, right? I'm talking about addictive qualities or addictive lifestyles that I actually know people who have done these. So shopping, absolutely. I know a shopaholic and I love her beyond measure. Actually, two of my closest people, one's a shopaholic, one is a physical fitness, to the point of, self-deprecation, hating yourself. And, there are a lot of stuff, lifestyle. I have to look this way. I have to act this way. And, a lot of our identity becomes wrapped up in these addictions, right? Yes. If we don't feel good enough, or if we're not taking care of our emotional health and well-being, we look for outside sources to give us that feeling, right? So I put makeup on yesterday for the first time in probably like 3 years. And I'm just like, oh, and then I went and bought more. Yet I never wear it.
This is fun.
Right? But I never wear it. And so, right. And now I'm like, well, maybe I'll go to Sephora and grab the really good foundation, because I have rosacea. I can't stand the feeling of really thick foundation.
Me neither.
But at the same time, I want to cover, right? I want to cover. I want to look nice and not have all the red splotches and all of that, right? But I don't have to.
Right. Yeah. And I think to your earlier point about, kind of addiction takes root when we have created this pathway in our minds that we've come to believe that behavior, that thing, if it's a substance or, something we can touch and feel, that is the solution to the emotion we don't want to feel. And in the trying to create an emotion, we're trying to remove the feeling of boredom, in many cases, like we want to create excitement because we're so bored, and now, I used to think of boredom and now I'm like, yeah, that's not boredom. That's peace. That's serenity. That's quiet. And I think, the same can be true. I participate in 12-step recovery. That's how I stopped betting. And I think it can also be true about programs of recovery and faith relationship, that we can, as people with a tendency I'm talking about myself here, no one else, as someone with an addictive personality, I can get addicted to anything. So I could get addicted to meetings. I could get addicted to church. And it's knowing kind of what are my signals that I've tipped over the line of like genuine curiosity, engaging in something that's healthy, to this is now becoming potentially a destructive pattern. And I got to be on the lookout for it. And with I'm so glad you're letting me talk about gambling in a forum like this, because I think, one of the things that really resonated with me in my recovery spaces was that there's so many men represented, and all the studies on gambling are centered around men, and all of the analysis about gambling behavior is centered around men, and women are the afterthoughts. And we're categorized as a certain type of bettor. And I fit none of the categories that they try to put women into. And that means for me that I was engaged in pull tabs. I was engaged in FanDuel. I was not that actual app, but I was engaged in fantasy football. I was engaged in lottery. I was engaged in poker and blackjack and all the things that they say are guys' games. And we have more and more availability. You've got Lotto on your phone. We've got Lotto on our phones here. We've got scratch off tickets on our phones here. Many states are now introducing sports betting terminals. We've got daily fantasy sports. So more and more betting is coming, and more opportunities to place a bet is coming. And same with those in-game features, buy a level up, buy a loot box, buy a badge, get the mystery prize. All of these organizations, social media included, have started to embed the designed to be addictive methodology of slot machines for this intermittent reward mechanism that our brain loves, that little dopamine and serotonin boost that we can get, those feel good feelings, and they come real quick. And we also get that same chemical release if we almost win. So, like when you almost beat a boss in a video game and you're like, don't quite do it. Like, you got to go back. You got to go back and do it again because you're convinced you know how to do it the next time, and suddenly you've lost another hour.
Yeah. Yep. And it happens to all of us, right?
Yes.
In one way, shape, or form. And, you made a very good point, though. Like, all of us go through that, oh my God, I have to try it again, right? Like, I just about did it. I have to try it again. Or, even the lottery. I've won 4 numbers on a 7-number lottery. Now it was $20 or $50, which was a lot, but at the same time, it was like, well, maybe next time I'll get all 7, right? And we all kind of go through that, and that's natural, right? That's, and quote unquote, a normal, and I'm going to quotations that because normal is subjective, but that's a normal behavior. 99% of the population do that, where we have that release and it's like, oh, I have to try it again, or no, another chapter, or, and it being healthy. It's when, and this is where I'm getting to the point you made, it is when it starts to negatively impact your life, right? Where you're going, where did all my money go? What happened to this, right? My husband said that to me the other day. Where'd all our money go? And I'm just like, this, and this. And then I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah. Where did my money go? Where did my time go?
Yeah. How did it get from 11 o'clock to 4? Right. And I've done that reading, and again, healthy, but getting into a book and it's like, now it's like 4 a.m. because
not at the cost of your rest. Yes.
Right. And it costs me my sleep. And, doing that every so often, maybe once in a blue moon, once every 10 years or 5 years, that's not so bad. It's when it's consistently all the time, every day. Right. And beating yourself up for it is pointless.
Yeah.
Comes to actual addictions, right? And again, don't beat yourself up if you fall off the wagon, if you just acknowledging the fact that it's an issue is a huge first step. Then you start catching yourself, right? And I tell everybody this, when you're, the shopaholic that I know, she's starting to acknowledge it.
Yeah, it all starts with awareness, right?
Right. So I'm a smoker, right? And if I turned around, I'm not ready to quit, but if I was ready to quit, if I went and every time I had a cigarette go, I really should quit. I really should quit. I really should quit. And, oh, I'm smoking again. Oh, I'm smoking again. Every time I acknowledge that, right, it gets me more ready to be like, okay, this is seriously an issue. I need to change this. And then you start thinking, well, what could I do instead? Or, what's actually created the issue? Now, again, addiction is stemming from a need to replace, remove, or create a feeling.
Right.
And we need to understand what that feeling is. And that's where you go and you ask for help. What's causing 99% of the time, it has something to do with your beliefs about yourself. Half the time it is not knowing how to cope with your emotions. I know my son, we did my very first episode on the show I did with my soon to be 20-year-old son.
Awesome.
And you can only find it on Facebook and YouTube. Just so everybody knows, if you want to go check that episode out, it is on Facebook and YouTube. It's the very first one we did. And we talked about the fact that he used to cut. And that stemmed from a need to cope with his emotions because it was a focus.
And self-harm also is a behavioral addiction.
Yeah. And that's exactly what it is. Right. And so knowing that those are stemming from something, and being able to figure that out, find somebody like me, find somebody, anywhere, whoever you can, that's knowledgeable about what addiction is and how to maneuver through it so that you can actually identify the issue, identify the root cause, and, start taking back your control, because you lose control to addiction.
Yeah. I think the root cause connection, for a lot of us, in recovery from and working our version of formal, whatever that looks like, version of recovery, right? That a lot of us can get caught up in the why did I, why do I? And so I think it's really important for people to understand, the source could simply be a feeling or a lack of a feeling that you're trying to create. And there may not be, I have it, right? But there may not be this childhood trauma or this life trauma event. And I do think that trauma and addiction are like this. And that trauma certainly can lead to addiction, but sometimes the searching for the why can distract you from the searching for the how. How do I get better? How do I choose a different way of living? And so the exploration of the why doesn't have to come first.
Yeah.
And I'd encourage anyone who's thinking about their relationship with any behavior to really start to search for the how can I change this, more so than the why do I do this.
For me, because now I agree, but
it's both
different opinion, right? For me, the why is important, even if it is searching for a feeling, right? Because feeling, so a lot of the times, shopaholic.
Yes.
The shopaholic that I know, lost her identity, didn't know who she was.
Right.
And the shopping became something that made her happy because she didn't know what made her happy. Right.
Yes.
And so finding the why, it was creating that feeling. Right.
Yep.
And when you go to the why, even if it is creating a feeling, now I'm different. I'm a mental genius. So this is what I love to do, is finding the why. I love finding the why and helping you change your perspective of the why. Because when you find the why and you say, okay, well, that doesn't really relate anymore. Right. I can be happy within myself. That changes the need to create that feeling.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I think we're kind of saying the same thing in different ways, that I'm like, you don't need to look for the, why did I ever start doing this thing? Or why did I become addicted? But why am I doing it right now? I'm doing it because I want to feel better. That's that why. Yes. Because that's where you're going to find your triggers. That's where you're going to find the things that are sending you back to the behavior you're trying to change. So I agree with you. The why am I doing this today, right now? Why do I want to do this? I think that's really important. And I, like you, I geek out about our mind-body connection, and the why is sometimes just a thought, like shopping is fun. I mean, sometimes it's really not. Do we love standing in line? Do we love when things don't fit? Do we love when they don't have our size?
No. And that's the thing, right? Is finding, okay, well, is it really helping?
Right.
Is it really making me happy? Is it really what I need to do? Is it really something that is it really something good for me? Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the how can the opposite be true is one of my favorite questions to ask when my brain tries to give me an absolute, like I was convinced that gambling was fun, right? Gambling was not fun. I was miserable. But there was that part of my mind that was convinced that it was fun, it was entertaining, it was enjoyable, it was exciting. Yeah. Tell that to the me who came home at 5 a.m. thinking that she was worth more dead than alive.
Yeah.
The opposite was true.
Yeah. We don't think about stuff like that. Sorry, I'm just going to close my window.
Okay.
There's a little bit of excess noise. As much as I like the wind and the cool air, it's a little bit too much excess noise on my end. I hear it, whether you guys don't.
I'm not hearing it, but I'll give credit to good audio.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the audio on these things. So what lifestyle addiction? So we talked gambling can be anything, right? Gambling is anything that you spend your money with the chance to win something. That's gambling.
Yeah,
right?
for skill or not. So I mean, it can be as simple as, I'll bet you a cup of coffee. I'll flip a coin. We didn't even talk about bingo and purse bingo. I mean, that's gambling.
Yeah. Anything that you have a chance to win something is gambling.
Yeah.
Then we have gaming, right? Where that's the online gaming. What was the newest one that they were doing? Shoot, the Kardashians even had commercials out for it.
I don't know. I stay away. And then we could even some of the crypto stuff has this element of.
See, I have avoided crypto like the plague.
Yeah, me too.
That's just me. In my personal opinion, I avoid crypto like the plague. Yeah, I don't even know. I had it on here at one point and I deleted it because I was like, this is boring now. But again, even just the apps that you can download on your phone, right? The gaming apps on your phone or on your tablet or whatever that you can download and put money into. Roblox, which is my daughter's favorite right now. Yeah. And she's like, can I have some Robux? And I'm just like,
yeah,
maybe. That's usually like a birthday or Christmas or once in a blue moon type thing where she gets Robux, right? Yeah. But yeah, and then there's lifestyle, right? Health and fitness. There is dieting. There's
just food in general, right? We could take overeating, undereating.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So anything lifestyle that we can become, right? And again, to classify it as an addiction, it has to be negatively impacting your life in one way or another.
Work.
Yeah.
Work.
Don't get me started on work. My husband, so
she's starting business number 7.
No, we only have 6.
But what did we talk about at the top of this before we hit record?
Okay, that's part of number 6.
Okay. So all right.
For anybody wondering, yes, I'm addicted to creating. I'm a creator. I love to create. So when I get a new idea, it's like, oh my goodness, I have 2 filing cabinets to the left of me. And one of them is half full with programs that I just have to put into courses and launch.
Right.
But so I've got identity coaching is one of them. Spiritual teaching is another one of them. Then I have the show, which is another one. I have the Women Supporting Women Network, which is a membership group for women only. And we cover 6 different categories and various topics within those categories.
Yeah.
And so it's a support group for women and it's member only, which is nice. And then we have the My Biz Fits Me, where I do business mentoring. And then we have my craft one. So my craft one has crystal jewelry. As you can see, I have crystal jewelry. I make heat therapy bags, which is why I have a ton of fabric and a sewing machine behind me. And I created a new heat therapy bag today, but I'm not going to mention what that is yet because I have to make the first one before I launch it.
Yeah.
But I will be doing that later today. So needless to say, yes. When I get creative, I tried to make a new crystal that just anyway, I like creating, right? So maybe I'm addicted to creating and starting new things. And
Yeah. And at the same time, like these are things that are bringing good into your life. Right. And I think with like work can be one of those ones that's,
oh, my
it's
husband,
hard to have in the line. Yeah.
my husband. So that's where I was going with this.
You're addicted to
So,
him.
well, yeah, absolutely. And he is, I love him dearly, but my husband is an a-hole, born and raised a-hole. But I love him. He provides me with everything I need. Love, support, security. I have no worries with him. So yeah, we're good on that one. But so he dislocated and broke his ankle July 1st.
Oh.
And my husband's been working nonstop since he was 15.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very
how hard was this break for this guy?
Oh, it was, yeah. So he just went back to work for the second day yesterday. And he's like only going like 2 or 3 days a week, 4 hours, right? Modified and slowly getting back because he still can't walk without crutches. And so he was supposed to pick up our daughter because we're doing pickup and drop off now. And so I was like, well, leave work at 2 and go pick up the oldest daughter. And he's like, okay. And then he messages me or calls me. He's like, you need to go pick her up. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, because I have to stay late. I said, no, you don't. Like, no, you don't. Right. And he used to do that all the time. Right. His hours are like, yeah. So men and women can absolutely and utterly get addicted to work as well. Staying overtime, putting everything into work with no return, putting yourself out there to the detriment of your health and your family. And I was like, what's more important, that staying 20 minutes later or picking up your daughter?
Exactly.
I ended up picking her up because it wasn't a big deal. It's just the once. But
yeah, but it's a good question to be asking, right? Like, okay, am I choosing this decision on purpose, or is it an impulse to please the boss or look good in front of the coworkers or please a customer? I mean, I'm a single mom and I can't tell you how many times I showed up at daycare at 5:59 p.m. last mom showing up, trying to eke every last minute out of work. And these things, we can always see them in hindsight in a way that we never did when we were in the middle of them. And I can look back and say like, oh man, what was I trying to prove? And to who? That I was good enough to be there despite my single motherhood, that there was some part of me that felt shame, and it stinks to admit that now, but felt shame about my single motherhood. Right. So I was trying to overperform in other ways, which looked like overcommitting at work and overcommitting to volunteer things and then dropping things and feeling overwhelmed all the time. And yeah, creating a reality I wanted to escape.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And we do that all the time.
Right.
I
love that you do identity coaching. I do some of that too. And I think that's the important stuff. I think for me, once I stopped gambling, and I know you're also somebody who's actively in some form of recovery, right? Okay.
So I was in my teens, early 20s, I was addicted to drugs. I was a binge. I would binge drugs.
Yeah, but still you chose a different relationship with those things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And so, I would say, like, now I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
Active recovery.
So with this lens of recovery, and we're looking now at our life, like, okay, like, do I want to choose this thing? Right. And choosing deliberately to be aligned with our goals, like your husband choosing to stay that 20 minutes later, me choosing work over kid stuff, or choosing to do too much. And now in recovery, and this is not, I don't think, where I was going, but I'll say it anyway. Now in recovery, I'm like, okay, like, how do I want to live? How much time do I want to work? How much time do I want to give myself, for me, for self-care, for reflecting, for journaling, for my big ideas that get so big that they have babies? I think yours are doing the same. And it's a conscious choosing as opposed to a reaction to circumstance. And that's what's really different in this self-discovery piece of it, the identity coaching. Now I found my original point. It's truly in recovery, you begin, or when you stop a behavior that's been all consuming, you begin to have these moments of like, well, who the hell am I? Who am I? What do I like? I was so lost in gambling. My identity was so wrapped up in my professional face. I had like two faces. Like here's the work mom face and here's the fun face. But no one knew the dark, sad, full of pain face. I didn't show that to anybody. And I was so busy pretending to be what other people wanted, depending on the hat I was wearing, that I was just chameleoning through all of it and never asking, who is Terra? What does Terra want? What does Terra need? And now I'm asking those things and I've created my identity. It was always there, but I wasn't listening to the voice inside of me. And now that I've turned off all those things that were distracting me, disconnecting me from myself, it's just so important. So I love that you do identity coaching. And it's so important for any women who are feeling lost or like they don't know who they are. Absolutely get in touch with Melissa about what that identity coaching looks like, because, I think we get to this certain point in our lives where we're like, is this it? I don't want this to be it. I wanted more. It's okay to want more.
When I first started coaching, I started coaching because I felt called to it, right? And my son was going through his cutting phase and I wasn't with him. I saw other kids his age that were just absolutely traumatized, had no coping skills. Mm-hmm. And then two of my favorite musicians had committed suicide, and back to back. And I went through and I'm like, what is this purpose? Right. And I'm like, I used to get so mad at the thought of people committing suicide, because it's like, there's so much more available to you and you don't see it. Right. And this whole thing got me thinking, and it wasn't until 6 years later that I realized that it was 95% of our life is 95% of our reality we create. So those circumstances that are weighing us down, we created those. Now that isn't a blame. It isn't a shame. It isn't a guilt.
No.
What happens when we realize that the reality of our life is created by what we choose? That's powerful. Yeah. Because you have the power.
Yeah.
To create a different reality.
Yeah. Take that power back. Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
So go ahead. Yeah. So when I talk about a Phoenix identity, and I just rebranded it to a Phoenix identity, in October or January, my son and I went and got matching Phoenix tattoos.
Love it.
And so, because him and I both went through a Phoenix transformation.
Right.
What it is the Phoenix transformation. When a Phoenix doesn't like its life anymore, what does it do? It burns it to the ground.
Yeah.
Reclaims the fact that it's a Phoenix, and it takes charge of its life and recreates it.
Right. And rises.
And that's what we do, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
That 5% that is circumstance, that's the things we can't control. That's whether you get hit by a life bus, right? You get hit by a life bus. If somebody says something to you, you don't control that. If somebody does something to you, you don't control that. Do you put yourself in those situations? A little bit, yeah, because we do make choices based on our belief systems. So I've recently created what I call the SMARTER method. And I'm in the process of writing the book for it and all the programs, because that baby becomes little itty bitty babies. And it's going to be at least an 8-book series. And what it is the SMARTER method is what each person needs to create a happy, healthy, balanced life. And every one of the SMARTER method, because it's an acronym, every one of the SMARTER is in relation to our identity. Yeah. Everything in our lives comes down to our identity. If you are in a toxic relationship pattern, right, and that cycle keeps coming, if you are in gambling, if you are in drug or alcohol addiction, if you're addicted to sex, if you're addicted to little lifestyles, that all comes down to something in your identity or something fake in your identity that doesn't belong.
Yeah.
Right? People pleasing. We are taught that. That is not part of our identity. You made a point, and I wanted to touch on that. When we lose our identity, right? And you were talking about work and losing our identity in gambling. We lose our identity as mothers.
Oh, yeah.
When we become parents, we feel, right? Because society tells us we have to do everything and anything. We have to be there 100%. We are now mother. I'm not Melissa anymore. I'm now their mother. No, I'm Melissa first, then I'm their mother. Right? And you always have to fill that cup. So we get lost. I don't know how many women, mothers, empty nest syndrome. That's a mother who's lost her identity to her children. Retirement, losing your identity to your career. Divorce, losing your identity to your relationship. We lose our identity to all of these things. And now women across the globe, men across the globe are starting to say sooner, who am I? Do I want to live this way? Do I like this?
Right.
And
I think we all had a collective shaking, right, with the pandemic. Like, oh, am I focused on the right things? Are these the things that really matter? And I was a little early to that party. I shook my own identity a couple of years prior to that. But I think that this motherhood piece, I'm an empty nester, as people would call it. And it's different, it's different because we have these ideas, and I don't necessarily, it's beliefs for me, thoughts and beliefs. I can interchange those two words. Beliefs are just thoughts I choose to believe. And this idea of what a good mother looks like, a good mom would, right? How much guilt do we put upon ourselves with just that sentence? If I was a good mom, I would, right? And I am a good mom, so I is just as valid. I am a good mom, so I dropped the kid off at a sitter and went for a walk around the park. Right? Like we absolutely deserve this time for us, but we do have, as you said, that societal programming that every need our children have comes before our own, that we must sacrifice. And we've all just kind of bought into it and said, yes. And I will tell you, I will lay in front of a speeding train for my kid. Yes, 1,000%. I would consciously choose that today. There was a lot of things I unconsciously chose to do as a mom because of that societal programming. And there's a lot of unlearning that many of us have an opportunity to do when we get introspective and we start asking, do I want to believe that? Do I want to think that anymore?
Yeah. And that's where I come in.
Yes.
Right? That is exactly where I come in. What is our societal expectations? What has society put on us? What do we believe, right? Are we done people pleasing? Are we done putting everybody ahead of ourselves? Are we done spending our time, our energy, our money, our love on things that don't matter to us? Not that, don't get me wrong, some of them do.
Yeah, but we got to pick. We
right?
get to decide that.
Yeah. And not only that, okay, so I've seen and I've heard mothers say, I'm only alive for my children, or I'm only, everything I am is because of my children. I'm like, no, I love you, but no. I come first, my priority list. I'm number one. I come before everybody else because nobody else is going to put me number one. From the day I'm born to the day I die, I am my only constant. I have to put myself first. I have to make sure my needs are met, that I'm in alignment, that I'm balanced, that I'm happy, that I'm healthy, that I have to make sure of that. Then my husband comes second because altruistically, he's supposed to be there after my kids leave.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So if I don't pay attention to that relationship, if I don't put the effort and the time in that relationship, then what's it going to be like when our kids are gone? We're just going to be roommates.
Right. And you're today thinking planfully and thoughtfully about what kind of future marriage do I want, right? It's not just about today, because today he might piss you off.
Yep. No doubt there. And then my kids,
because he's an a-hole, I think you said.
Oh, but I do not go a day without laughing.
Yeah.
I do not. And it's momentarily, right? But I need him that way. I thrive on volatility at times. Like I'm a very volatile and vindictive person. So, if I need to get in a fight, he's right there. We're good, right?
Hey, I'm all for witty banter and sarcasm and giving, razzing each other. It sounds like you guys have some fun together.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And that's what we need. That's how we jive so well. And, I made sure that I opened myself up to a relationship like that because that's what I need. Mm-hmm. Right. We provide each other with the feelings that we need to feel. And I do relationship coaching inside of identity because that's what we need to do. We need to say, what do I want to feel? Yeah. Right. What do I want to feel from my ideal partner or my,
right.
So we have a comment. That's where widows struggle. They've lost their identity. Absolutely. Any traumatic event. And, we said earlier that, addiction and traumatic events can go hand in hand, even still without the addiction, right? When you lose a loved one, right? Even the end of a relationship is like losing them, right? You've put everything into that. Who am I now? What do I do now that they're gone? How do I work? How do I live? The house is empty. There are a lot of very traumatic thoughts that come through that. And no matter, even me, okay, so I am an identity mindset genius. I own that. And it's not a confidence or a conceit. It's a confidence. It's not a conceit. Even if I lost my husband, would struggle with that. I would struggle with my identity because he's such a huge, I've chosen to have him be such a huge part of my current identity. Now, being a wife is not my identity. Being a mother is not my identity. Being a partner is not my identity. They're roles, titles, and responsibilities that I choose to take on. Yeah, but they do adjust.
They do adjust. I think the biggest identity shifts for me are wrapped up in grief. My biological father died by suicide when I was 3. My mother died when I was 25. My stepfather who raised me died when I was 35. So I've and more, right? These are the biggies. And there's more biggies. And the thought, back to my, I'm a thought work genius. So very similar to what you're doing in identity coaching. But the thought for me that I found the most painful in my grief was, I don't know who I am without them. And that is 100% an identity thought or a lack of identity thought, that I had lost this part of me when they died. And I've had to really work hard to reframe how I look at that loss and look at my experience with that person living with me on earth, making me the person I am today and proud to be, so that I can carry on the seeds they left me with. Yeah, the good ones.
We choose to allow people and animals into our innermost soul. There is not the question does become, who am I without them? Right. And it's a very common question.
We are still, you are, or both.
We are still the same person, right? Our identity is always constant. It's the way we express that. It's the way we live our identity. It's the way we embrace our identity that changes. And our traumatic events, our big moments, right? Those are the moments where we start to question. Those are the moments we learn from. Those are the moments we grow from. Those are the moments that, death, unfortunately, is a guarantee. for all of us. It's something we all have to live with, not embrace, but live with and acknowledge, right?
Yes.
And live through. And that's something that, it can still be a positive. And this sounds crazy. I can turn any negative into a positive because there's always a lesson, right? We don't ever lose our connection to that person. We lose the ability to touch that person. We lose the ability to use our senses, not our clair senses, because those are different. But we lose our physical senses in this reality to connect with them, right? They're still there. Their energy is still there. I'm a spiritual teacher. So I do believe that, we are interconnected. I'm a medium as well. So I do converse with that other side. And I do believe they're always with us. But yes, we mourn the loss of their physical, manifestation.
Yeah. I can still hear my mama's laugh, and it's been, it's going to be 21 years in November, and I can still hear her laugh and feel that feeling of joy when sharing laughter with her.
Yep.
And she's not physically here.
Yep.
But I still get to experience that.
Which is great. And that's the thing. Like, I mean, a lot of people going into mediumship, actually, I want to touch on that with addiction. A lot of people can become addicted to spirituality, to connecting with mediums and psychics and intuitives, to connect with people that they've lost, to, I always tell people, if anybody ever comes to me for a reading or anything along those lines, I say, I'm not giving you dates. I'm not giving you definitive, you're going to divorce or anything along those lines, because I don't ask those questions. You're not supposed to know those questions. Right. And, getting all that information, if you go to see a medium to connect with a past loved one, that's great, because if you don't have the ability to connect with them, it's great, because then all those messages come through. Mm-hmm. But there are people who go every month, every 6 months, every year to a medium to reconnect.
Sure.
And they don't really have to.
Right. There's some comfort, I think, for
almost a crutch
people.
At times.
Yeah. Like right? You're saying, it could become an addiction. I mean, how many headlines have we seen about the scammer? I'm putting them in air quotes because they do exist. But I
absolutely do.
Yeah. Taking tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands from people who were trying to connect with loved ones or trying to understand their future through partnering with a psychic.
Absolutely. All right. Was there anything you'd like to add before we get going?
I think just for anyone here who is engaging in gambling or gaming behavior, I think a good self-assessment would be to ask yourself, are you playing with more than you can afford to lose? And are you spending more time than you can afford to spend on those activities? And if so, I'd encourage you to explore the idea of a break. There's lots of resources. If you're stateside, many of your states will take gambling profits and revenue and turn them into support for people who may need assistance with therapy or treatment for problem gambling. And then there's tons of online resources. So if you look, there's groups on Facebook and there's Zoom rooms and there's formal 12-step programs. But if that's where you're at and you need support or help, you don't hesitate to reach out to me directly and I can point you to some resources, or just use the Google. It's a powerful tool.
It absolutely is. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciated your time.
Yeah, I appreciate the time to have the discussion. Thank you. And so good to see you again. I can't wait to see what comes next with the product we talked about at the top of the hour.
Oh, it's going to be so cute. All right, Just a Family. This has been your episode. If you would like to connect with either myself or Terra, please feel free to do so. Our links are in the description of this episode. If you'd like to be a guest speaker, or if you have a topic that you want to see featured on the show, please reach out to justalivetv.com. You can find Just Alive TV across numerous social media, podcasting, and video platforms just by Googling Gista. Yeah, I'm your host, Melissa Krechler. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon, morning, or evening, depending on when or where you are watching. And don't forget, there is no shame, blame, guilt, or any judgment in being in an addictive cycle. Just acknowledge it and start asking yourself how you can change. All right. Lots of love.
Thanks so much for having me.